my experience of growing up here in LA was my dad actually worked at a church. He was the music director and stuff like that over there, and he taught piano lessons out of our house, which, you know how I'm like so comfortable having a million people around me at all given times?
That's probably why.
Yes. So he actually taught piano lessons out of our living room. So literally people came into our house and taught piano lessons in the middle of our living room, and he did it for 40 hours a week, which was a half-hour lessons, which equaled out to 80 students in our house a week, plus their families.
Their families too, just
so
hanging
I had like
out.
100 people in my house a week.
Oh my gosh, okay,
that probably now explains why I'm so comfortable with like a million people being in my office suite at any given time. So we had all that going on, but on Saturday mornings, my mom would be like, oh, we need to get her out of the house. I had one other sibling, my brother, that was like, we need to go do something with them, other the kids are just gonna make too much noise for my dad to teach. So my mom would take us to the omelet parlor on Santa Monica, and then we would go watch the chainsaw juggling man in Venice. And she was
Excuse me?
Yes.
I don't think I've seen, he must have been not recent because
anymore.
maybe he messed up with the chainsaw juggling.
I don't know, but I remember my mom was always trying to like, she has such a kind, open heart of like, she was that person that wanted to pray for everybody. Like always constantly was like, I'll pray for you, and like would stop and pray for anybody and everybody, just that wonderful, beautiful Christian being
I love
wanted
that.
to do that. And she prayed with the chainsaw juggling man, and I'm out there just being mortified that she's trying to pray with the chainsaw juggling man. So on the Venice boardwalk.
Was he into it?
You know, I don't know, because I wasn't in tune with enough to understand whether or not he was probably into it. He probably appreciated, looking back, that someone cared about him and cared about his safety and cared about who he was as a human being. I'm a brat. So I'm like 8 years old, like, Mom, can we go now? Like, do we need to keep on praying? We're good, we're done. I'm like, can we move on now? Can we go to Santa Monica? Like, so yeah, that makes me really feel like I grew up here and just the LA experience and LA culture of just, it is a really different place to kind of grow up and stuff like that.
Oh, no, totally, yeah. I mean, I grew up in Kansas, and chainsaw juggling, like that, no one says that and can't, like, nothing like that. Oh my gosh. The craziest thing I ever did was go to I don't know. There's nothing even that I would describe as crazy that I did growing up. Like, I had a very, very regular childhood until I moved out here and then realized, oh wow, I mean, the world is so much more than Kansas. But yeah, so that's really cool though. I feel like I hear the craziest stuff from people who have grown up here and really just, I don't know.
We didn't know it was crazy though.
That's true.
Because the thing about it is, I didn't know you didn't grow up with chainsaw juggling men. You're like, it was a different experience. Like when we would go to, like when I went to a concert, it was the Hollywood Bowl. Like that was just my experience of like, oh, you go to a concert, you go to Hollywood Bowl. You know, you cheer for a team, you're cheering for the Lakers. Like, this was all like normal stuff inside my backyard. And then you find out that like, it wasn't until I was watching Parks and Rec where they had like an episode where they're like, what happens when Lady Gaga comes here to sing? And Parks and Rec is based in Indianapolis. They're like, well, unless something happens in Lady Gaga's career, she's not coming here. And I was like, oh, I don't have that problem. Everyone's coming to LA.
I would say that's everybody. Oh, that is so lucky for you because oh my gosh. Okay, well, first of all, the 2 times that I tried to buy concert tickets when I was in high school, my parents made me sell them because they were like, it is too dangerous for you. Kansas City it's
okay.
People don't expect it to be dangerous. When I tell people I'm from Kansas, they're like, oh, you lived on a farm. Oh, nice.
Tractor.
Like, no. Did not drive my tractor to school. Like, no. Don't call me Dorothy, all sorts of stuff like that. But
don't call me Barbie.
Yeah.
Okay, so I get that completely.
Yeah, oh my gosh, totally. Yeah, but what people don't know a lot about it is that it's kind of like when you go into downtown Kansas City, the last time I was there, I actually saw a shooting happen. I'm not even kidding. I was walking out of this dinner restaurant with my friend. We were on the plaza, and then we heard these like fireworks, or did not see, assumed they were fireworks, you know, because positivity. And we were like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But then we see some other people that are walking out of the restaurant start running the other way, and we're like, maybe we should run too. So we start running too, and then there's this like girl walking away from it, and like she's being followed by a bunch of other people that are like crying and like freaking out too. And then we see cops start going towards the scene. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think we just maybe we should go.
Oh my
Maybe we should go to our next destination. Yeah. We look on the news the next day, and then it was like, it was a literal shooting. Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, I'd always heard about that stuff growing up, and big part of the reason why my parents were very, like, oh, you're not gonna go do stuff when you're that young out in Kansas City, And now I kind of get it looking back on it, but at the same time, I don't know. I did not really get to do a whole lot of stuff until I moved away from.
Okay, I love how
City,
you
but yeah.
experienced that, because people probably will have assumed I experienced something like that in LA and never did. So that's the interesting part where it's like, people probably assumed like LA can be dangerous, and I've never. Yes, there's parts of LA that are dangerous. I don't go there. So
Right, yeah, exactly.
It's actually interesting to know that you experiencing that, and like, Kansas is Midwest, right?
Yes. I'm glad you don't think it's the South, because I get that a lot.
Okay, geography, not my thing. California school systems, great in some ways. Geography, they don't teach you that. So I have no idea. Don't ask me where Kansas City is. Actually, if my student manager ever here says she's from Kansas City and she knows where all the states are, and when we did a state map test between us, like literally I printed out state maps, I know like 5 states. And it's like, that's really sad. So, okay. Yeah, I don't know where anything is. So, but yeah, it's interesting to see the dichotomy of like, you think that me being around the chainsaw juggling man in Venice would have like the safety issues versus like you being in Kansas City.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
So-
And I'm surprised that your like parents brought you to areas like that, considering like their, what was the denomination, by the way?
Lutheran.
Okay, Lutheran. Okay.
But yeah, it was actually interesting. My mom was an insurance agent, so she sold, this is actually my very first concert that I ever went to. My mom was sold her, like insurance policy to a guy that was in a band. And at that time, she did not know any bands whatsoever at all. She still doesn't. That she came home, she's like, I sang, or she's like, I just sold like insurance to a lead singer of a band, Michelle. I'm 8. Mind you, I'm 8 years old, so I'm 2nd grade, maybe 3rd, something like that. And she's like, they gave me tickets to their concert. Let's go to their concert. And I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, you're 8 years old. You're like, I'm going to a concert. Yay. And she told me it's like Veggie Tales, which Veggie Tales back in the day were like these like Christian like vegetables that made like little like songs. And
I used to watch their cartoons as a kid. Yeah.
Okay, so you know Veggie Tales.
Yes, but
okay.
how do they do that live action? Because they're vegetables.
It was not Veggie Tales.
Oh.
It was not Veggie Tales. So we're pulling up to Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood, and I'm like, this looks sus. Like, this is not Veggie Tales. So then she pulls up to the House of Blues on Sunset, which is like not a Veggie Tale venue. And I'm like, this is interesting, but I'm with my mom. Like, she knows what she's doing. We get backstage passes, and I'm smelling stuff, which she told me at that time was rosemary.
Right.
Yeah, she was like, that's rosemary. I'm like, and I'm looking around, I'm like, none of these people are Veggie Tale people. Come to find out, she was insuring the lead singer of a band called Korn, which was a heavy metal rock band.
Korn. They were called Korn?
They're called Korn with a K. And their top song at that time was called Freak on a Leash.
Oh, perfect for my child.
Well, she thought she was like, oh, they must be a part of Veggie Tales because their name is Corn and maybe they're broccoli and like there's like asparagus out there and stuff like that. So mind you, this is a time of MTV when I'm not supposed to be watching it, but I am watching it, of course. And I knew the song Freak on a Leash. So my mom is like watching the lead singer and I'm backstage and my mom's like, definitely like, don't go near anybody at all. And I'm like at my first concert watching Korn backstage and like literally mouthing the words to Freak on a Leash. And my mom's like, how do you know Freak on a Leash? I'm like, I don't ever watch MTV, Mother. Never, ever. So
what could it be me?
Yeah, that was my very first concert experience.
Oh my God. And how old were you?
8.
Oh my gosh.
It was very much my mom was like, okay, so they are not Veggie Tales and we are not going back. I think my next concert was like Spice Girls or something.
Okay, so more tame.
Yeah, more tame after that. But yeah, it was definitely one of those things where my mom was like, oh, that was a different experience.
Yeah, I feel like usually people don't start out with the heavy metal and then get more tame. No. But, you do you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm kidding.
LA, so.
That's hilarious, though. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that was my first experience right there.
Dang. Well, yeah, honestly, still have not had, I personally, even as a 21-year-old, still probably have not had that crazy of a concert experience, but I will, I'm getting there, I'll get there at some point.
Oh, for sure. I love going to any and all concerts, so if we ever want to like go to a concert one day together, like.
I'm in. Say less.
Love it. I literally go to anything and everything. Like when I got my license at 16, I was up at Sunset Boulevard, like at a Whiskey A Go-Go at a concert. Like I'm just all about the music scene. I love it so much.
Okay, my gosh, yeah. I love that.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Yeah. Did you do a lot of stuff like that? So the concerts you went to, like, did you do stuff like that with your family, or like, what kinds of stuff would you do with your family growing up?
So family life was pretty, what I consider normal. So mom and dad around, and my brother and I were around. They did take other extra people in all the time, which was one of those things where I didn't quite understand it, but now it's actually played a key role into who I am nowadays.
Do you mean like people who came to live with you guys?
Yeah, they would actually sometimes stay with us for a period of time.
Okay.
So, or if I remember one night, my mom's friend, her husband was abusive when he was drunk. So there were times when they would come over to the house and my mom would be like, you're sleeping on the couch. They need your bed. So my parents would take everybody and anybody in. There was like no questions on anything. My brother had a friend that lived across the street. The mom and the son got into huge arguments sometimes. The guy would end up spending the night at our house. So my really good friend that I call my sister, who I met when I was 5, always constantly coming over to our house. So, you put that on the 100+ people are coming through our house a week.
Right, yeah.
It became one of those things where like family was just not blood. It was always like the people that were just around in it. So growing up, I actually went to a small private school, preschool all the way up to 8th grade. So like in LA, typically you're in these huge classrooms. I actually was with a graduating class of 24 people where 12 of us had known each other since like kindergarten.
Oh, okay.
So very small, weird experience to have that in LA. And while I was doing that, I was doing a bunch of singing. My dad was a piano teacher, so I played piano. I played handbells, which is a really odd hobby to have.
Is that exactly what you would think it is? It's just 2 bells in your hands?
Do you ever see like New Girl where she was like,
wait, I do know.
Yes.
Okay, I do know what you're talking about.
It's like a whole like little handbell concert thing. So
cute.
I did all that and I wanted to be a singer, and I just remember like that's exactly what I want to do. So I went off and went to a bigger high school, and that's when I got the opportunities to sing more and to be involved in. I was never a performer, but more of a singer, and like played piano and was in choir and stuff like that. So I did that in high school and was very high achieving, made sure I had good grades, was in honors classes, like doing that kind of stuff like that, and kind of was just on the outside. It looked like it was like, oh, she has this like perfect idyllic life with her family, and like they're Christian, they're part of the community, and like she has good grades and stuff like that. And I think that's something as my identity I really clung to as growing up and stuff like that, was like from the outside it looked really perfect. So
what about it on the inside did not match the outside?
That was the hard part. Was we did have a very, very close family growing up, and this part was hard and heartbreaking, is the fact that one of the close family members that I knew, starting around the age that I went to the Korn concerts, unfortunately started abusing me. So as that kind of happened and that was progressing in a sexual abusive situation, I clung to my extracurricular activities as a way to have an identity that was positive outside of this other action and event that was happening in my life that was confusing, because when you're 8, you don't understand what's going on and why that feels good, but it's also shameful afterwards. So there was a lot of stuff going on where on the outside it looked like I was like this perfect like kid growing up, but on the inside we had this huge family secret that actually nobody knew about and what was going on. So that was a really hard time in my life of just kind of growing up in my years of like looking back, where it's like I see this duality of like I had a really great family life and had a really great parents and I love them to death, but I also had this cloud over my head over my upbringing and my childhood, because my abuse with my family member was just bad. I started being abused when I was 8, continued to be abused all the way till 20. And it was like 12 years of abuse. And the hard part about it was around middle school, when you start developing and going through puberty and stuff like that, I started falling in love with him. So I went from, well, this isn't a shameful act, and I'm using the word shame as an adult. I didn't know that word as a child. But I went from like, this is wrong, to like, this is my little secret that no one knows about, and I'm in a relationship with an adult man that I'm better than all the rest of my like peers and my friends and stuff like that, because they're trying to do these childish like relationships, and I'm already in a relationship. And I really started falling more and more in love with this one man. And this one man, I think on whatever level he was at, who was way older than me, did fall in love with me at some point along the way too. And it was hard because in order to keep that secret going, I had to keep a secret identity of being perfect on the other side.
Right.
And that was really, really challenging and hard. And you lose your identity through it all, because basically it's almost like you're code switching or switching between the roles of being like on the phone with him and like being in love with him, but then in your own life, like nobody knowing what's going on, and now that carefree, loving person and like that exuberant person everybody wants at parties and stuff like that. So it was a weird dichotomy of things that were going on during that time. So it's like hard for me sometimes now to look back at my childhood and know if it was good or bad. If you know what I mean?
Because it's interesting, because the person that I know you as is so bubbly and has such a positive outlook on life that, you know, you would never know just by talking to you right off the bat that you've come from anything like this. And so I'm curious, how did that affect your mental health while growing up, especially in such, you know, a formational time of your life when you're going through changes and you're trying to figure out what you want to do, and also at the same time try to appear like everything's good on the outside? Because I mean, I definitely feel like that's something that a lot of people going through that era of life can relate to, is wanting to appear like everything's good on the outside, but at the same time, maybe not everything's right. And obviously, what you went through is a lot tougher than what the grand majority of us have had to go through.
It was tough. It was really tough because it was like in a weird way, I was like enjoying the sexual abuse. And that was all the stuff that like I learned over the years. I actually watched the Michael Jackson documentary on HBO. So I learned what grooming was. And a lot more about like, oh, I was being groomed from like 8 to like, I couldn't help to be where I was at when I was 16. And 15, 16 is where I kind of hit the pinnacle of like, I'm in love with this person, but they're also married to so this person was like married into the family.
Right.
So I also didn't want to break up our family, but I was like in love with somebody in our family. And it was like, but I also loved this person I also loved this person's wife.
Right.
And it was like a weird dichotomy of everything that was going on during that time. So I started cutting. I started like, just because I felt like that was my emotional release, is to cut. And people also didn't see anything, because if you cut on the inside parts of your thighs and stuff like that, no one would see anything. I wasn't taking care of myself. I would do binging, where I would basically like come home from like after school and like eat every little thing that I could. And I never purged it, but like I would eat so many calories because I was just like stuffing my face with like food. And like that made me feel good, to the point that like you are eating and you're uncomfortable and you're still eating.
Right.
And like that was really like a mind fuck for me right there. And it was difficult for me to do all that stuff. And then it kind of got to a point where I was like, the cutting isn't helping, the eating isn't working, because I wanted to still maintain a cute physique here in the bikini area of life. So I then turned to drugs, and I did start turning to drinking. And I started, and the other really weird thing about it is I had boyfriends during this time. And I had the boyfriends to be on the outer appearance of like, to kind of hide this other secret. So
Right.
like this other person knew about those boyfriends and was like, no, that's good. You need to have that cover up so that, because nobody can know about us.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I had this boyfriend, and I had boyfriends that would have access to drugs and alcohol and everything else like that. And I, did various different drugs and stuff like that. And I started with just like an escape. And then as it grew from like, especially junior and senior year of high school, where I really hit the pinnacle of doing all the shit, where actually shit hits the fan after a while. Because there's no way you can keep a dual life and not have it hit the fan at some point, where it's just like you forgot your lies.
No, absolutely.
And like you are just one big lie, and you're like, I don't even care about lying anymore, because at this point I don't even know the truth. So I figured out in high school that, I don't know how I was this astute in high school, but like sophomore year in high school, I figured out like, okay, this is not right, but I also like it, but I also know this is not right, and also this could blow up in my face one day. So I thought I was going to be done with high school and eventually maybe be with this person forever.
Can I ask really quick, when you kind of did have that realization, did that come from within you, or did you have any sort of like support systems that kind of helped you to?
No
it was
support.
really just you.
No support.
Oh my
I had
gosh.
one guy friend that knew I had one guy friend that told what happened to me, and he was very much of like, that's wrong. That's wrong. You shouldn't be doing this at all. And then the boyfriend that I was dating during the time was really fantastic, because he was like, he said the exact thing I needed him to say, which was, shit, that sucks. That's all I needed someone to say. I don't need someone to give me answers like in a solution or anything like that, because I wasn't in a solution situation. I was just like, need someone to understand that I was like in a sucky ass situation. And those are the two people that I could call from when I was hurt. After I would be hurt or be abused or whatever it is and like have this thing that happened, I would call them from the closet. And I would actually call them and talk to them and stuff like that. So
Why do you think that hearing someone else, I guess, like affirm that was so important?
because it made me feel valid that I was stuck.
Okay.
So it wasn't, this guy wasn't trying to get me out of the situation. He was like, and he had his own demons that he was dealing with, and I had my demons, and we weren't the best in relationship at all. We actually were kind of abusive with each other, but we needed that to kind of handle our separate lives together. But I just needed someone to be like, shit, you're in a shitty situation. I have no idea what to do, and I have no idea how you're going to get out of this situation. But just to have that validation of being like, no, you're in a shitty situation. This is fucked up. And that sucks.
Right. Okay.
And it kind of hit the pinnacle of that. So in sophomore year, when I kind of figured that out, that I was like, okay, I got to have a backup plan. This may not all work out after high school, and I don't know what's going on. And I was getting good grades, so I should have been thinking about going to college, but I also knew that I wasn't going to go to college. So I got a cosmetology license.
Right. Yeah. I remember you told me that.
So I ended up.
Why cosmetology, by the way?
So funny enough, I had like this like tech credit thing I needed for high school, and I took a cosmetology class that summer going into my junior year. So I already started I just needed to take a summer credit for it, and I realized I was good at it.
Yeah.
Or good enough. I always say I'm like good enough at things in life, where I'm like, I'm good enough to fake my way through things. So
Fake it till you make it.
fake it till you make it. So I was like, oh, this is interesting, and I figured out through my community college, I could go to school from 8 to 3. I could still do my choir practice from 3 to 4:30, so I can accomplish the other goals that everyone was seeing me do. That's like, oh, go Michelle. And then I'm going to cosmetology school from 5 to 10. And that's,
Oh my God, that's like no sleep though.
no, junior and senior year of high school, and actually full time during the summers.
Oh my
So because it
gosh.
takes, funny enough, it takes 2,500 hours for me to color your hair here in California.
Really?
Yes.
Like you have to go to cosmetology school for 2,500 hours.
Is it 2,500? 1,600 hours for me to graduate to do your hair. Yeah. something like
Okay.
that. Yeah. So 40 hours a week. So part time basically goes out to 2 years for me to
Wow,
color your hair.
okay.
Yeah. So when you see your cosmetologist, understand that she went to school for like a year to do your hair.
I'll tell her thank you next time I see her. Gosh.
Which is actually, I became a personal trainer later on. The fact that all I had to do was take a test to like personal train you when I could really screw up your body. And like I had to go to school for like a year to color your hair.
That
So,
is something that
sketch.
needs.
A little sketch.
You know what? I don't know enough about either realm to say something, but that is, yeah.
It's because cosmetology has been around since the dawn of day. Everyone's been getting their hair cut and colored. So it's regulated by the government, where personal training has only been around since like the 1970s. So it's not regulated by the government. So that's a whole nother conversation. But basically, because I went to cosmetology school with like grown-ass people who were going to school or working during the day, they had access to drugs and drinking and partying and things like that. So I got my fake IDs. I was going out to like bars with them. I was doing so I would literally be out at nights and somehow would wake up the next morning, do my homework, and go to class the next day and get good grades, and managed to do that all the way to about my spring of my senior year, where just shit hit the fan, and all of a sudden like grades went out the window, and like I didn't freaking care about what my life was going to be, and I like was going to go take my SATs and decided to go to a party instead, and like decided I wasn't going to college, and like basically was like, I don't care anymore. I don't want to graduate. I don't even want. After a while, I was like doing drugs to see if maybe I didn't wake up the next day. So I was like, maybe I just won't wake up. And I always held myself back to make sure I didn't, but I always kind of wanted to kind of commit suicide through drugs, just because it was like felt like it was an easier way to go. And it became one of those things where I was like, I don't care. I don't know what's going on. And my parents not that they weren't understanding or didn't know what was going on. I was really good at hiding it. And also the fact of it didn't make sense to them. They're like, here's a kid who, funny enough, during that time, I actually went to sing at Carnegie Hall twice. So I was actually a choir singer. So I was doing that. I was getting good grades. And I was partying, but they're like, well, she must be safely doing it because she's coming home and she's getting good grades and she's doing stuff like that. And at church on Sundays. So this doesn't make any sense at all.
Right, yeah.
So
Was there ever a time where you felt that you were able to talk to them openly about that? Or did you always feel like you needed to hide
graduating
aspect?
from high school with my cosmetology license and the fact that like I was like in a messed up situation, I basically realized like if you don't change your life, you're not going to walk across your high school platform. Like that's just I'm just not going to be there. Like I'm going to kill myself before this is going to happen. And I'm not going to like physically kill myself in the sense of like I'm going to take my own life, but like you're going to do enough stuff that's stupid that could take your own life.
Right.
And I had in high school had just had a friend who died through a drunk driving accident, and my first thought in my head was, oh, I could have been the driver that was drunk that could have killed her. Like, here's my friend who was beautiful and amazing, and she was awesome. And I remember going to her funeral, which she had over like 600 people at her funeral. This beautiful, lovely girl, and think in my head like I could have been the one that killed her, and this beautiful, innocent angel is now dead because somebody else was drunk and killed her. So this happened my January of my senior year. So kind of getting into a bunch of other shitstorm of stuff where there's like a house party that went wrong that had stabbing at it that I ended up going down to Tijuana.
Oh.
That's a whole nother story.
Oh, okay.
So it was,
Wow.
yeah, it was a whole shitload of stuff that basically ended me to like, you're not going to make it through to your 5-year, 10-year graduation, like have reunion. So I had 3 lifetime goals in my life. 1 was to sing at Carnegie Hall, which I had accomplished. 2 was to run a marathon. So I literally was like, well, screw it. I'm just going to go run a marathon. Was somebody that ran a mile in life was like difficult. The President's Mile. I was like, this is rough. This is tough. I never was any sports ever growing up. I never did a lick of sports. And I was like, I'm going to go run a marathon.
Wait, you had never done
No.
any sports ever and
Never.
decided marathon?
Yes. 0 to 100. Oh, so I found out in therapy I'm a 0 to 100 personality. So
Honestly, I'm not surprised.
yeah, no. After you get to talk to me
That's
more,
pretty
you're
cool,
like,
though. That's
yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah, sort of. My parents were kind of like, okay, let me get this straight. We spent so much money on you to do singing. Also, too, they were like, you need to make your own money now. Like, you need to find some other places to live and do things like that because, like, now they knew at this point, like, you are really you have messed up. You are not in a good space anymore. My parents were trying to help me, but you know, it's definitely one of those things where I graduated from high school. I was like, they're like, you need to find a job because you're not going to college. So
Also, why, can I ask, why with the music route too? Because I mean, singing at Carnegie Hall twice, that's insane too. Like, was that ever kind of like an option? Or also talk about, or can I ask, how did that even come about, you singing at Carnegie Hall twice? You've done so much more than most high schoolers.
I
at that point.
literally, so funny enough, I remember I was like in like early elementary school, let's say like 4th grade or something like that. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table, and Today's Show was my show that my mom watched every single morning with like Katie Couric and, oh gosh, Matt Lauer. But like was watching, and they did a special on Carnegie Hall. And I was like, I'm going to sing there one day, Mom. And I remember my mom, who's super supportive, she's like, you can do anything you want in the world. She was like, now eat your breakfast.
Like, forget about it.
Yeah, let's keep going. And then I knew that there was a local high school that actually had a program where you could sing at Carnegie Hall. But you had to be like, you had to go through auditions, you had to go through the whole entire process, everything. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go do that. And my parents were like, all right, my parents are very much of like, if you are going to actually follow through on it, we'll keep you doing whatever you want to go do. So I, got into this high school, I got into the program, and I was in like this honors choir program that sang at Carnegie Hall like my sophomore year and then my senior year. So I was going to New York at that time and like singing and doing stuff like that, and it was a blast.
That is
like, it was
insane.
crazy. But I remember getting off the stage like that final performance, and it was like May of my senior year when everything was hitting the storm. And my parents were like, so maybe like let's revisit this whole conversation of like college. Maybe we can get you a scholarship doing this. I'm like, oh no, I've retired.
Like, I'm retired. I've done enough.
Well, kids here, I'm like, I'm a choir singer. Like, I know I can blend like the best of them and stuff like that in life, but like, I don't have a vocal. I am not Kelly Clarkson. Like, I am not Adele. Like, we're not going on American Idol anytime soon. So, what is there more to do? Like, I'm in New York City. I'm singing. I'm like, oh, great. I'm like, so that was the other thing about it was like identity change of like, I don't know who I am, and I'm not singing. And I always wanted to be an athlete, but I never was an athlete. So, marathon. Why not? Why not? And I had a neighbor that actually was like, there's a program in LA where you can like sign up and like train with a group of runners. And I was like, I'll go do that with them. And it changed my life. And I knew that it was going to. Like, I had this back in my head, hindsight now it's going to, because you can't drink and do drugs if you're doing marathon training. You literally physically can't wake up the next morning and run at 6 a.m. in the morning if you're doing anything the night before. So it was that split that I need, because not only did I graduate from high school and lost those friends, and like graduated from like cosmetology school and lost those friends, now it's like hanging out with actually a healthy group of friends and doing stuff like that.
Okay,
So
wow.
that's how I eventually got into fitness, which is where I am now, is by the means of basically being like, I need to go do something. So I got into marathon running.
So really just kind of changing your environment, being around those people. Did you start like meeting a lot of people that you developed relationships with too, that I guess kind of helped with that as well?
So it was really weird because during the day I was doing cosmetology, which actually worked. I was a wash girl for a place called Jose Bear up in Rodeo Drive, which is like right next to Tiffany's.
Okay.
And that particular salon was a very famous salon back in the day. I don't even know if it's around anymore, to be honest with you. But it was where the Playmates got their hairs done. So Hugh Hefner's girlfriends got their hair done at this place.
Oh.
So random. So random. So basically, I was like, oh, like so during the day, I was like working on Jose Bear and then became friends with the person that was doing the hair and makeup, or doing the hair specifically for the Playmates. And I basically became his assistant. And that's how I started like working at the Playboy Mansion at times and like did really weird stuff.
Okay,
so,
wow.
Yeah, so that's what I was doing during the day. And
how was that? Like, how was going there? Like, what was that
dirty.
like? Really?
Dirty, so dirty, so dirty. So disgusting.
Like
so
as in
like shag
trash
carpeting with
everywhere,
like just shag carpeting with substance on it.
Okay, you don't have to go into that. Yeah.
So, but it was like a thing where it's like I'm working really freaking hard being a cosmetologist, and I was also nannying at night to make money and make ends meet and stuff like that. And in the meantime, I'm like training for like a marathon and trying to like clean up my life and be in a better space, which mind you, when you're cleaning up your life, Playboy is not a place to be.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Not at all. The weird environment.
I was gonna say,
a whole
I
other
bet.
conversation, but weird environment.
Okay, I can imagine. Yeah. Huh.
So we ended up I ended up getting out of that situation because when I got more and more into fitness, I started getting more obsessed. And I will say the word like obsessed because that's where it kind of came, where I was like going to the library because I was broke. So I was going to the library and getting books on like how to train, fuel, nutrition, how does the body work and everything else like that, and just reading them on my off chances or off moments when I wasn't doing anyone's hair. So
I love that.
Yeah. And then it got to the point where like I read all the books in the library and I basically moved into actually wanting to read a textbook. So I went to the community college and actually would pick up nutrition textbooks.
Oh,
and,
wow.
like, read them.
Okay.
And be, like, fascinated by them and stuff. And during that time, because it was fall of like after I'd graduated, my friends that were good and went off to like college and stuff like that came back and they were like, it's great in college. There's toga parties and there's lots of fun stuff and I'm learning cool shit. And I'm like, oh, I'm working a shit ton of reading a textbook by myself. Like, this is not where I need to be. So I literally went to community college for like one semester and actually because of my good grades in high school, was able to transfer into a 4-year university like within 1 year.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's how I ended up. And I transferred into this one particular university because being that my dad was a Lutheran pastor at the Lutheran University, was nearby, and they had a degree in exercise sports science. So I got a degree in exercise sports science and psychology.
Oh, okay. So both of them, exercise, sports science, and psychology.
And then the 0 to 100 personality, I got 2 degrees in 3 years because I wanted to make sure I graduated with my normal cohort.
Oh my God. I feel like you're just this crazy person that doesn't need sleep. I don't know how.
So I have part EDD. I'm part EDD, and actually, there's been studies that have said that ADD people actually don't need as much sleep.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. As a wellness person, get sleep. Like, don't do that. But yeah, my brain is just like on the go wired, which is actually one of the reasons why when I was talking to my therapist recently and stuff like that, I was like, maybe I have ADHD. Which first off, she was like, you didn't know this? She was like, we can get you tested, but come on now. But it was also interesting because when I did drugs, I figured out that like pot, people like hated me when I was on pot because, you know, people that are usually pot and stoners and doing things like that or smoking and stuff, they're usually like mellow, listening to music, having fun time. I'm bouncing off the walls, like doing every like little thing.
Really?
And then the people that are doing coke are bouncing off the walls doing things like that. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm over here just mellow, keeping it real.
Oh, weird.
Because my brain chemistry is different.
Weird. Okay, I did not know it worked that way.
Adderall is a low dosage of coke, which is what you give people that have ADD.
Okay. Oh, so it focused you.
Yes.
Instead
Yes.
of doing what like most people.
What most people do would be up for 3 days. I was like, oh, I can go do a little bit and go to bed.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's insane.
Yeah. So that became one of those things. I was like, oh, that made sense. So
well, there you go.
yeah, and I've learned later on that like people that have like I don't call it a mental illness, but kind of like a different brain chemistry, will seek out drugs to help balance their brain chemistry, which is probably one reason why I sought that out. Because I was like, oh, that levels me out.
No, yeah,
Versus,
totally.
like, pot does not level me out. So
Yeah. Well, so at this point, you're like focusing on fitness. Have you run the marathon yet, by the way,
yes, I
too?
ran 9 marathons in 3 years during that time period. Yeah.
Okay.
I just kept going. Because here's the thing about it. So I actually did start seeing a therapist when I went to Concordia. Thank you, therapist. Love you dearly. You're amazing. And I didn't know how to get out of this situation. I was stuck. I was still being abused, even though I was in a better position in my life. And I was now going to college. But what ended up happening was my high school boyfriend, who he and I had this on again, off again relationship, basically called me up and he was like, I'm done with life. And I was like, you cannot be done with life. You're my lifeline. So this was my first semester at Concordia, and he was at Boulder University. And I was like, just don't do anything. I'll fly to Boulder. So I flew to Boulder, and I had to pay, like, put it on my own credit card, but I was hoping the person I was, like, seeing, the abusive person, was going to actually pay for this flight. And basically, I got to Boulder. My friend is still alive and thriving and stuff like that to this day. He dealt with his own demons and stuff like that. But when I got there, I realized I'm like, I am literally stuck. Like, I have now got myself in the best possible place I could be in my life, and I just can't do anything. So I ended up reading an article about a girl at Boulder University who had got raped at a party. And while she was being raped, she was like, I will make sure this never happens to anyone else ever again. And I remember thinking, like, I want to do that. I want to make sure what I'm going through, which I know other people are going through, doesn't happen to anybody else. Because I started kind of speaking up about stuff to other people, but nothing big. So I ended up going down to a tree, and I just started crying. Like one of those like release tears where you're just like, it's all pouring out of every pore of your body. And this one guy, I'll never forget him. He saw me crying, and he comes up to me. He's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, nothing. I don't know him. I don't want to talk to him. And he's like, no, really, what's wrong? I'm like, nothing. Leave me alone. He takes off his messenger bag, sits down on the ground, and says, no, tell me everything. And I blurted my entire story out to the stranger. And then his only response at the end of it, because he listened to the entire thing, was like, you have to tell your parents. You have to tell somebody. You have to get out of this situation. So I ended up flying back to California, and a couple of days later, I ended up telling my mom. And then I ended up actually telling my therapist, who knew something was going on, but wasn't completely being truthful to her, because she was one of those people that was like, I'm a mandated reporter. If you tell me anything that's still going on, I have to report it. Told her, and that's when I ended up going to the police and reporting the entire thing.
Wow.
So a stranger on a tree saved my life.
That is insane. Oh my God. Do you still know the person today?
You know, this is so funny that there's this thing back on Facebook back in the day where there's like 25 things you don't know about me. Because I remember telling this guy, like, I ended up reaching out to him on Facebook and finding him somehow on Facebook and stuff like that later on after everything. And I was like, bro, and was like, you saved my life. I told my parents, you are my angel. And he ended up writing these 25 things about me. And number 23, I'll never forget, he wrote, this girl called me her angel once, and she'll never know how much that meant to me.
Oh my gosh.
So I don't keep contact with him and don't have any relationship with him, really. I think he may be still on my Instagram account. I'm not even quite sure. But he changed my life, and he saved me.
Wow.
So I ended up reporting him and ran marathons to be healthy and stuff like that, and then ran basically my 9th marathon. And I was like, I'm done for a while. This is exhausting. And then basically graduated from high school, worked a bunch of odd jobs in fitness, and fell in love with personal training, and actually got a personal training license because I wanted to learn how to personal train myself and didn't have the money to pay for a personal trainer because I was broke in college. So actually, again, decided to get a textbook on personal training and decided like, oh, I can get certified as a personal trainer to train myself, and it's cheaper. So I did that, and then I ended up training other people. I ended up becoming a trainer that way, and then I ended up training people. I worked at the YMCA. I worked at 24 Hour Fitness, worked at boutique studios, ended up being a trainer up at Paramount Pictures for a while.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was amazing. And then ended up working at a corporate wellness and started a gym from dirt up at like 25.
You started your own gym?
Yeah. Okay. This company gave me the carte blanche to start a gym at 25 for their company. They're like, here's a hard hat, but build a gym. And I'm like, because I think I fibbed a lot on my resume back then. I was like, I can do anything. Yeah, you're 25. You're like, no one gives you a shot at 25. So you're like, I have to lie on my resume because in order for me to have management experience, someone has to make me a manager. Like, so,
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not gonna just lie about that. So I got into it. I remember having the hard hat on, and this like corporate wellness company was building a new gym for the DirecTV headquarters that's now AT&T off of near the LAX.
Oh,
and they
okay.
were basically like, here's a gym, it's dirt and wires, and here's a hard hat. And I'm like, cool, I'm 25, let's do this. So I ended up doing that and getting a master's along the way. I have a master's in health and wellness promotion, which is also like kind of health and wellness business.
Oh, wow.
And doing all of that and worked there for 5 years and had a blast.
That is so cool, though.
Doing all that.
I feel like at this point, it sounds like you found fitness and wellness to be your thing, to be the thing that makes you excited. Obviously, I mean, I don't think I've ever read a textbook on that. I don't think I've ever, like...
I'm an obsessive personality.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're doing that, like, obviously you love it, which is really, really cool. And so now you're at LMU too, and you're still doing fitness up here at the Fit and Well Center, which is also part of how we met. I came and took your F45 class and was like, this woman teaching this class, oh my God. Like
she's crazy.
No. I was like, I feel so motivated. Are you kidding me? Like, I remember doing some sort of, I don't even know what the moves are called, but I remember doing some sort of move, and then you're like, you can do a few more. I'm like, oh, like, go heavier next time. And I was like, okay. Maybe I can, you know?
I always find it funny because I like literally like I teach classes and I like to think I'm good at teaching the classes, but at the same time I'm like,
oh, you are.
Paying.
You're, they are.
I'm like, someone is paying me to basically go up to you and be like, you can go heavier. Let me dance right next to you.
I love it though. I literally love it. And there'll be certain times too, granted, I haven't done one in a while because I've been abroad, but I remember there were some that I went to where it would be like in the morning and like people would be tired, but then you'd be there like, all right, let's go. Like going around like giving people high fives. And I was like, I love this. Are you kidding me? Like I need to match your energy. Oh my gosh.
I think, and that's the thing about it is going back to my therapist for being like, do I need help with this ADD? She's like, no, you found a job that like exercises the hamster.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, my mid-break of my job is not like getting a lunch break and grabbing coffee. My mid-break is like going to these classes and teaching you guys and dancing around and like, fitness and wellness is such a different thing for people. Like I've yet to find one wellness definition that fits. Like literally.
What do you mean by that?
So you can tell me what your definition of wellness is and my definition of wellness. It can be totally different because I don't feel like the dictionary definition of wellness encompasses all of wellness.
What's your own personal definition? Not to put you on the spot, but
I don't even know because it depends on the time of day. Like my definition of wellness depends on my like spiritualness, like where I'm at in my spiritual life. It's also how do I feel in my body that day. It's also what is going on in the relationships in my life. Like there's so many aspects to fit to wellness. It's like I think financial is part of your wellness. Like if when you have no money, you do not sleep. Because you're like, where am I getting my next pay? Like, where am I getting food from and stuff like that? So I think wellness is it all pertains on like where you're at this time. Like with wellness to somebody who is sick is all about like, how can my body get better? Wellness for someone that's on a spiritual journey might be, how can I find my passion and purpose in life?
Right.
Wellness for someone who is trying to become a new mother who's trying to get their body back and be like, wellness is getting their body back and trying to figure out what their new body looks like. So I think wellness is different in different chapters of our life. What is your definition of wellness? Or do you kind of know where I'm going on this one?
Oh, no, absolutely. I guess for someone who right now is in college, and it's also interesting that you brought it up earlier because you brought up eating disorders earlier, and I struggled with my own in high school. And quite frankly, I hope that someday it'll be something that is completely behind me, but I can't say that at the moment. But I do know that I have come a long way, and that's also been a big part of my wellness journey is my relationship with food, my relationship with exercise, and things like that. And I actually remember the first time I ever heard somebody talk about, or I feel like the only real like eating disorders that I'd ever really heard about growing up were anorexia or like bulimia and things like that. But the truth is, a lot of times it doesn't really need like a specific definition. Like the first time I ever heard about someone who suffered from binge eating was actually in college. My friend recommended me this podcast and I listened to it and the girl's story was the exact same as my own. And I was like, why on earth have I never heard about this anywhere else? Like, I thought I was just weird. Like, I thought it was something that was embarrassing and something that I couldn't really talk to people about because I don't know how they'd be able to relate to it. Like, what is able to be related to about this is just weird. But no, I mean, I think part of being able to grow from it and discover how I can like heal my own relationship with food is from hearing about how other people have done it, you know? And so that to me was really important, and hearing this one podcast and being like, oh wow, you know, like I'm not the only one who's like going through this. Like it's a thing. It's not just like me and it's something that I should be embarrassed about. Like no, and it's also why I feel a lot more comfortable talking about it now too, is also the fact that A, I have grown from it, and you know, B, there's been other influences in my life that I've been able to speak to about it and hear from about it, where I realized, you know what, it's just a thing that can happen to people and it's something that I can grow from. And so I think that's definitely been a big part of my wellness journey, as well as that's part of why I was excited to talk to you about fitness too, because I think that there was definitely a time in my life where I almost used it as a form of, like, I was very cardio heavy when I was back in high school and kind of dealing with my own eating disorder. And so I definitely used to be a little bit more like using workouts as like a punishment, almost like, oh, if I eat a lot, you know, I should probably go run way more the next day. I will say now, I think I have gotten to the point where every time I go for a run, I get runner's high every time. I do it because I love it, and I'm so thankful to have gotten to that point. Whereas I think about myself like 4 years ago, or I think like, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, however long ago that was, when that definitely was not the case. And it really is amazing what exercise and fitness and actually getting into wellness for the right reasons can do for you. And it's funny too, because like now that I've gotten into lifting and things like that, again, to me it's something pretty new, and I still prefer running just because it's so mindless. I can just listen to a podcast and
Still
just
do marathons.
oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
And granted, I'm not at the marathon level
but
yet.
still, yeah,
I probably will never be, but you know what? Like it's a release. It's a really nice release. But to me, that's what my wellness journey has been about. And I think you're exactly right. It is really different for a lot of people, and I feel like it can almost help you grow in different ways depending on what you consider your wellness journey to be. And I know that in talking to you earlier, I know you're very spiritual. You showed me one of your tattoos that you wanted to get with you showed me those tattoos too, yeah, which I love. And especially the new one that you were thinking about with the different chakras and the
I might get that one over spring break, actually.
Oh my gosh, how cool.
So.
Yeah, but I was curious how your own wellness journey kind of related to your own sense of spirituality in a way too. And I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but
I know. I feel like I can talk to you forever. So
oh my gosh, yeah. And you've been like amazing, by the way. And I thank you so much for opening up about everything too.
It's definitely one of those things where, again, kind of being like the girl reading that article about the girl in Boulder. It's like, how can I use my story to help people?
Absolutely.
You know, and again, going to the idea of like your story and what you're going through is more than a definition. And I think we get stuck into definitions. Because one of the beautiful things about fitness and wellness is like, first off, being in LA, totally accepted around here. So there's all kinds of like new ways of fitness and wellness and different things to try and stuff like that. And it really kind of brought up the idea of like, I had a hard time with Bible and things like that growing up. In fact, when I was actually getting confirmed, I almost didn't get confirmed the night before I didn't get confirmed, which is like a huge ceremony in the church of like, you know, take your first communion. And this was like I was 13, because I was like, I don't understand this whole religion thing. Like, this doesn't make sense to me. Like, if I hurt you, why am I praying to God to ask for forgiveness when I hurt you? Like, I didn't understand some of the stuff. So I very much, my dad actually asked me, he was like, well, if you go through confirmation, I'll get you a gift. And I remember,
there you go.
Bribes. And he was like, what do you want? And I remember saying, like, I want AC/DC's Highway to Hell on vinyl.
That is just the last confirmation.
That would piss him off, right? He's like, how about a cross necklace? How about jewelry? But it ended up becoming one of those things where like I did fall in love with the fact that like through my running journey and like using my time of running for hours and hours and hours to like yell at God and kind of be like, why would you let something like this happen to me?
Right.
And then find out that there is purpose in the pain. And that like God doesn't control, like as much as we think of as God and the higher being, at least this is my personal thing, he can control everything. He can, but because he's given us, or the universe is giving us the power of freedom of choice, we have the choice to make bad decisions. and have to live with the bad decisions that are made. Now, unfortunately, some of those bad decisions were inflicted on me and stuff like that, and get inflicted onto other children and such. So, but the whole idea of religion, I tried really hard to go to church and like find churches that fit for me, and it didn't. And also I realized that I was kind of part of the queer community too, where I was like attracted to, I consider myself pansexual, I'm attracted to the person's personality more so than their body and stuff like that. So I realized I was like, maybe I'm part of the queer community, which then really doesn't fit into the church sometimes. So I really kind of just discovered that like my spiritual well-being, and luckily again, being here in LA, gets to be whatever I want it to be. Like, and I had a really, really wise friend whom I love to death. And she told me one time when I was like early 20s, she was like, she didn't have a religion that she prescribed to. She was like, my religion is love.
I love that.
Because her, right? Because her biggest thing was like, if your religion leads to love, she's like, if it's Buddha, Islamic, Jewish, Christian, anything, if it all leads to like love yourself and love one another, then we're all on the same path. Like, whereas if it all leads to love, I don't care how you get there, as if it all leads to love. And that's what made sense to me. I believe that the higher being in the universe and stuff like that is all about love. So the idea that there's chakras inside our body is something that I do believe in. There's different areas of our body that can be affected that you can check in with yourself on. But even the idea that there is just someone above me that's watched over me, because you probably have experiences, and I know stuff that you've done in your life, where you're like, first off, this isn't a coincidence. This is crazy, and I don't know how the hell this is happening. Also, too, it's like times when you've done something crazy, you're like, I don't know how I survived that. That I believe that those are higher being moments. So there is someone watching over me, and their ultimate thing is to make sure that I'm loved for and cared for.
I love that. Yeah.
I literally, every morning, my mantra before I get out of my car and before I walk into my doors of my office is I want my words to reflect you, being love or higher being. My words to reflect you. My thoughts be centered on you. My words to reflect you, and my actions to show you. So as long as I show love, speak love, and think love, I feel like that is my version of spirituality.
Wow. It's really, really incredible to hear you say that, and that you came up with that on your own, especially just hearing about your background. And I can't even imagine like how that transition was, just from the person that I can imagine you might have been when you were in high school, as young as 8 up until 20, when you were able to actually go to the police and put an end to your abuse. I can't even imagine like what that journey was for you. And I think it's really, really cool to see you here now and know you as like the positive, amazing person you are, which that's what everybody knows you as. And I did want to ask one final question. So your background, it has a lot of, negative aspects of it that were part of your circumstances. And it's amazing to see how you push through them. But do you think that you would be in the same positions as you are now if you did not have those experiences? I mean, you found your way in fitness. And I know you're also a sexual assault counselor here at LMU, which I think is so cool too. But how do you feel about the fact that part of the reason why you're here is because of that? And do you believe you'd still be in the same position?
No, I believe that every one of us has like multiple journeys in life we can go. Like every single time we're at an end path, we end up going to like right or left or center, wherever it is, or backwards sometimes. So I believe there's multiple versions of what Michelle could have been. But this is the version of the Michelle that is. So if that hadn't happened to me, then the Michelle that could have been would have been a different Michelle that may have been doing something totally different. But the Michelle that is now is the one that is a byproduct of every pitfall, every stumble, every beauty, every moment, every cherished time going on to it all, every time I had to pick myself up. Everything about that is who the Michelle is now, but there are, if you want to go back into your own life, there's various versions of you. They're the could have been versions of you. And they're fun to sometimes think about, but at the same time, I'm so grateful to be in the position that I am the person that I am nowadays. And I have made purpose out of pain and stuff. And while I wish none of that happened to me, ever, it is one of those things where I don't want to ever go back to what the could have been Michelle. I want to be living in the what is now Michelle and kind of move forward with there. And really just see what the future could be. Because even looking into your own future as you graduate, there's a lot of could-bes in your future. I could be doing this. I could be doing that. And one day when you're being interviewed for a podcast later on because somebody thinks that you should be on a podcast, which, by the way, wow. I didn't know why would somebody want to interview me ever.
Oh,
but no, literally, I'm like, what? I don't even know. But I just word vomit.
Are you kidding me? Well, I've enjoyed it so much so far.
But you're going to be able to look back and be like, there's a lot of could have been situations had I stayed in that relationship, had I chosen to go to that grad school, had I chosen that university. But the beauty is at least I'm in a space in my life where I've accepted where I'm at, and I'm grateful, and I'm excited to see where I'm going to go. So
I really like that mindset. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it, and have absolutely loved our conversation, and I really, really appreciate you sharing everything.
back at you. This has been so much fun. So,
Yeah, oh my God, I've had a
thank you.
blast too.